It's a chilling thought, to ignore nature's cues and pay the ultimate price. I've often reflected on the story of Anthony White, a marine biology student with a passion for surfing, who encountered precisely that fate in the summer of 2014. Despite prominent warning signs, he paddled out into the territory of a great white shark. The consequences were devastating. That summer brought perfect weather to Surf Beach, California. Sunshine painted golden patterns on the glassy ocean surface. Anthony, just 22, embodied the spirit of a California surfer. His friends knew him as fearless and adventurous, yet deeply respectful of the ocean. He was known for his infectious enthusiasm and his habit of seeking out remote surf breaks. But he also had a methodical side, researching surf spots and ocean conditions before heading out. He'd spent weeks planning this solo dawn patrol session. This morning adventure was meant to perfectly combine his two passions, surfing and marine biology. He arrived at Surf Beach just as the sun was rising, spending the first hour checking conditions and waxing his board. He told other early morning surfers that the real waves were beyond the crowded spots, even though the area was right next to a massive seal rookery at Point Conception. On that fateful morning, Anthony set out early, carrying his 6.2 shortboard and minimal safety gear. He signed the beach access log, indicating he planned to surf the main break. But somewhere along the way, he spotted what looked like perfect waves breaking further offshore. Despite the warning signs about marine life, Anthony paddled out about 150 yards from shore to position himself. The area was beautiful, almost too beautiful, with seals barking in the distance and crystal clear water revealing the sandy bottom. As he set up for the perfect wave, he noticed something alarming. The water was unusually quiet. There were no other surfers in sight, and the seals had stopped chattering, but he was so focused on catching the wave that he ignored these warning signs. Finally, he was perfectly positioned, sitting on his board, legs dangling in the water. Then a terrifying silence fell over the ocean. Out of nowhere, a massive great white shark emerged from the depths, a mere 20 feet below. He had entered the domain of one of nature's most efficient predators. Great whites are living fossils, virtually unchanged for millions of years. Their torpedo-shaped bodies are perfectly designed for explosive attacks. These apex predators can detect blood from up to 500 yards away and sense the electrical impulses of a beating heart from several meters. When hunting, they approach from the depths in bursts of speed exceeding 35 miles per hour, using surprise to deliver devastating attacks with bite forces reaching up to 4,000 pounds per square inch. Anthony reacted instantly, but there was nowhere to run. The massive predator struck from directly below, covering the distance in a split second. He managed to see the shark's massive form just before impact. The attack came with such explosive force that both he and his surfboard were launched into the air. His screams cut through the morning silence as the shark's jaws clamped down on his torso. He fought desperately, punching at the predator's snout as it held him in its powerful grip. The massive head shook violently as razor-sharp teeth sliced through flesh and bone. The great white released Anthony after several seconds, typical behavior when encountering unfamiliar prey. But the damage was catastrophic. Blood immediately clouded the pristine water. Despite his severe injuries, Anthony began paddling frantically toward shore on his damaged board. The shark circled below, following the blood trail but maintaining its distance, waiting to see if this strange prey would weaken enough to approach safely. He managed to cover nearly half the distance to shore, but his movements became weaker and more erratic as blood loss and shock overwhelmed him. A jogger on the beach heard his desperate screams and immediately called for help, but the remote location meant rescue was still minutes away. By the time lifeguards arrived, Anthony had disappeared beneath the surface, the ocean swallowing him whole. 2 hours later, his mangled surfboard washed ashore, bearing the unmistakable crescent-shaped bite marks of a great white shark. The massive gouges told the story of an encounter with one of nature's most efficient predators. His body was never recovered, despite extensive search efforts. The university established a memorial scholarship in his name, and Surf Beach was temporarily closed while marine biologists studied great white activity in the area. The attack led to enhanced warning systems and additional safety briefings for surfers. As the sun set over the California coastline, the memory of Anthony White served as a stark reminder. I've spent years studying the ocean's predators, but some encounters still haunt me. Take the story of David Walter, a young charter captain in Galveston Bay. September 3rd, 2015, started as a perfect day, a brilliant blue sky over the Gulf Coast. But beneath the surface, a nightmare was about to unfold, a stark reminder of the ocean's unforgiving power. David, just 26, had built his fishing business from the ground up. He was a first-generation immigrant, the embodiment of the American dream. His clients loved his energy and his knack for finding fish. Friends remember him as methodical, always double-checking his equipment, driven to give his customers the perfect experience. That morning, he was taking 4 tourists from Dallas out for a bachelor party, promising them action near the Galveston jetties. And for a while, he delivered. They spent the morning pulling in red snapper and speckled trout. David expertly managed the boat, filling the cooler with their catch. He navigated to his favorite spot, a mile offshore where the depth dropped to 25 feet, attracting bait fish and the predators that hunted them. The tourists were ecstatic, already talking about booking another trip. But as they prepared to move, disaster struck. The boat's engine coughed, sputtered, and died, leaving them drifting in the strong Gulf current, heading toward the busy shipping channel. David quickly diagnosed the problem: a clogged fuel filter, usually a simple fix. But as he worked, the boat's anchor began dragging in the powerful current. The situation was becoming dangerous. Local charter captains had warned about unusual activity in the area, though such warnings were common in those waters. The water was murky from recent storms, making it hard to see what might be lurking. David had fished there for years without incident, and reasoned that this popular spot would be safe, with other boats nearby. His clients were growing nervous, and David made a fateful decision. He stripped down and dove overboard to manually reset the anchor, hoping to stabilize their position while he fixed the engine. He didn't know he was entering the hunting grounds of one of the Gulf's most dangerous predators, the bull shark. Bull sharks are incredibly adaptable killers. They're comfortable in both salt water and fresh water, thanks to specialized kidneys that regulate salt levels. This allows them to swim far up rivers and into freshwater lakes where other sharks can't survive. They can appear virtually anywhere there's water, from the open ocean to golf course ponds miles inland. Their aggressive nature and willingness to investigate anything in their territory makes them responsible for more unprovoked attacks on humans than any other species except great whites. They have a bite force of 1,350 lbs per square inch and electroreceptors that can detect electrical fields from meters away. They strike multiple times with the tenacity of a pit bull until their prey stops moving. David worked underwater, trying to free the stuck anchor. The current was stronger than expected, and the anchor was wedged in debris. Meanwhile, a 7-foot bull shark had been patrolling the fishing grounds for hours, drawn by the chum slick created by David's successful charter. The predator's acute senses detected the electrical fields generated by David's rapidly beating heart and the scent of blood from hundreds of yards away. What happened next was shockingly fast. David never saw the shark coming through the murky water. It struck from behind, its massive jaws clamping down on his leg with crushing force, before immediately releasing and circling for another attack. The impact was so violent that David's clients heard his muffled scream through the water. He fought desperately to reach the surface, but the bull shark continued its relentless assault. True to its species' aggressive nature, the predator struck again and again, each bite tearing away more flesh. The shark's persistence was terrifying. Once committed to an attack, bull sharks rarely give up, continuing until their prey stops moving. The multiple attacks created a feeding frenzy, and the murky water became a churning mass of blood and violence. David's clients watched in horror as the water around their boat turned red. They screamed for help and radioed the Coast Guard, but David had already disappeared beneath the surface, overwhelmed by the bull shark's relentless assault. The Coast Guard arrived nearly an hour later, finding only David's torn shorts floating in blood-stained water. The bull shark had vanished into the murky depths, leaving behind only traumatic memories for 4 witnesses. There's a story they tell in every boating safety course along the Texas coast, a cautionary tale about the Gulf's bull sharks that hunt in murky shallows. It's a story about how death can strike without warning. But thousands of miles away, in the crystal-clear waters of Hawaii, I've learned there's another predator, one that has earned the most terrifying nickname in the ocean. And sometimes, the attack happens under the cover of darkness, where even paradise becomes a hunting ground. The evening of April 22, 2016, brought perfect conditions to the remote coastline near Hana, Maui. A gentle trade wind rustled through the palm trees as the sun painted the sky in brilliant tropical colors. A young man named Christian Smith, just 24, couldn't have asked for better conditions for his solo fishing adventure at one of his secret spots along Maui's untouched coastline. Christian, by all accounts, embodied the laid-back Hawaiian lifestyle that drew so many to the islands. With his easy smile and encyclopedic knowledge of hidden fishing spots, He had become a local favorite at the surf shop where he worked. His friends described him as fearless and independent, always venturing to remote locations that other anglers avoided, constantly searching for the perfect fishing experience that only the islands could provide. That evening, he loaded his truck with heavy tackle designed for the large predatory fish that hunted Hawaiian waters after dark. The location he'd chosen was breathtakingly beautiful, but completely isolated. A secluded beach accessible only by a rough dirt road winding through dense tropical vegetation. Christian arrived just as darkness was settling over the ocean. The spot was perfect. A protected cove with deep water close to shore and a coral reef that attracted schools of bait fish during night hours. He set up his gear methodically, rigging the heavy equipment he'd need for the monsters that prowled these waters after sunset. As Christian waded into about 6 feet of crystal-clear water to cast beyond the reef break, everything seemed perfect. The water was so clear he could see the white sand bottom, even in starlight. And he'd already landed 2 nice fish when disaster struck. Moving through the water to reposition for a better cast, Christian's foot slipped on wet, volcanic rock. He fell hard against sharp coral formations, opening a deep gash on his leg. Blood immediately began streaming into the pristine water around him. Local Hawaiian fishermen had warned about increased predator activity during night hours, but Christian had fished these waters countless times. What he didn't know was that the remote location had become a hunting ground for one of the ocean's most dangerous predators. As Christian tried to assess his injury in the dim light, he realized the cut was deeper than expected. His splashing and the metallic scent of blood created the perfect storm of stimuli that trigger a predator's hunting instincts. Unknown to Christian, he had attracted the attention of Hawaii's apex predator. Tiger sharks are perfectly adapted for nighttime hunting in both shallow and deep waters, earning the nickname "waste basket of the sea" because they'll eat virtually anything. I once read that their stomachs have contained license plates, tires, and even other sharks. These massive sharks can grow up to 18 feet long and possess an indiscriminate appetite that makes them particularly deadly during nighttime hours when they move into shallow water to hunt. Tiger sharks can detect blood from several hundred yards away, and their lateral line system senses the slightest vibrations in the water, making escape nearly impossible once they lock onto a target. Christian began wading toward shore, but his movements became increasingly erratic as blood loss affected his coordination. The coral cut was more serious than he'd thought, and the metallic scent drifting through the water was like ringing a dinner bell for every predator in the area. A 10-foot tiger shark had been patrolling the reef edge when Christian's blood trail reached its sensitive nostrils. Unlike more cautious reef sharks, tiger sharks are known for their bold, reckless approach to anything in their territory, especially during nighttime hunting hours when they become most active. Christian never saw death coming through the dark water. The attack was sudden and devastating. The tiger shark struck from the side, its massive jaws clamping down on his injured leg with crushing force. The impact knocked Christian off his feet, sending him tumbling in the deeper water. The predator's attack was relentless and indiscriminate. Tiger sharks are known for their tenacious grip, often holding prey while using their muscular bodies to roll and tear. The shark maintained its grip while striking with its powerful tail, creating a whirlpool of violence. What makes tiger shark attacks particularly horrific is their feeding behavior. Once they taste blood, they enter a feeding frenzy, biting repeatedly until prey stops moving. Christian fought desperately, but the predator's grip was unbreakable, and each movement only intensified the attack. I've seen the look of the ocean after it takes someone. Christian's screams on that remote beach. They say they echoed across the empty coastline, but there was no one to hear them. The tiger shark continued its brutal assault, its indiscriminate appetite making escape impossible. When morning came, they found Christian's truck at the end of the dirt road, his fishing gear still on the beach, but Christian had vanished without a trace, claimed by waters that had given him so much joy. The disappearance sparked a massive search involving helicopters and hundreds of volunteers. They found his body 4 days later on a beach 8 miles away. The Hawaiian community held a traditional blessing ceremony, and his surf shop colleagues created a memorial fund for ocean safety education. But while Hawaii's tiger sharks hunt under darkness with indiscriminate appetite, off the rugged Northern California coast, the same species that claimed Anthony White was about to demonstrate that even professional watermen who've spent years in these waters are never truly safe from the ocean's most intelligent and adaptable predator. November 8, 2017 brought crisp autumn conditions to Fort Ross, Northern California. Morning fog lifted to reveal a dramatic rocky coastline where Pacific swells crashed against ancient sea stacks. Ryan Walsh, 29, couldn't have asked for better diving weather. Calm seas and good visibility promised a profitable day, harvesting the prized mollusks that commanded premium prices in the finest restaurants. Ryan embodied the dangerous profession of commercial abalone diving. His weathered hands and sun-damaged face told the story of 6 years spent in frigid Pacific waters, free diving to depths that would terrify recreational divers. Friends described him as methodical and safety-conscious, but also driven by an obsessive pursuit of the perfect abalone beds hidden in rocky depths. That morning, Ryan launched his small boat with his dive partner Marcus, a younger diver who looked up to Ryan as a mentor. The two had worked together for 3 seasons, developing wordless communication that comes from shared danger in one of California's most hazardous occupations. Ryan chose a productive rocky reef in 25 feet of water. The location was challenging. Strong currents, kelp forests, and the ever-present danger of entanglement in abandoned fishing nets littering the bottom. As Ryan suited up in his thick wetsuit, he felt the familiar mixture of excitement and apprehension. The water temperature was a bone-chilling 55 degrees, but Ryan had built tolerance over years of expo. His dive bag contained an abalone iron, measuring gauge, and collection bag, the tools of his dangerous trade. The first few dives went perfectly. Ryan descended through the kelp canopy to the rocky bottom, where clusters of red abalone clung like living jewels. His experienced eye identified legal specimens, and practiced hands pried them loose with surgical precision. But on his seventh dive, disaster struck. Working to free a particularly large abalone, Ryan's fin became entangled in abandoned fishing nets. The nearly invisible monofilament wrapped around his leg like a spider's web, holding him against the rocky bottom as his air supply ran dangerously low. After a desperate struggle, Ryan managed to cut through enough netting to break free. He made an emergency ascent, lungs burning as he fought through the kelp toward sunlight. When he finally surfaced, he was exhausted, disoriented, and dangerously far from his boat. What Ryan didn't realize was that his distressed movements had attracted the attention of California's apex predator. Great whites are living fossils that have patrolled these waters for millions of years. Perfectly adapted to hunt in the kelp forests where seals and sea lions congregate, these massive sharks typically reach 12 to 16 feet and can weigh over 3,000 pounds. Their torpedo-shaped bodies are capable of explosive bursts exceeding 35 miles per hour that launch them completely from the water. Their incredible sensory system allows them to detect electrical fields from several meters away and track blood trails from a 500-yard distance. During autumn, mature great whites patrol northern California in greater numbers, following migration patterns of their preferred prey. These sharks are incredibly intelligent, capable of learning and adapting hunting strategies, making them unpredictable and extremely dangerous to humans who venture into their territory. Marcus, watching from 300 yards away, immediately recognized that something was wrong. Ryan floated motionless at the surface, clearly in distress. Marcus started the engine and raced toward his partner, but the distance seemed impossibly far. The 13-foot great white had been patrolling the kelp beds when it detected Ryan's emergency ascent. The shark's acute senses picked up electrical impulses from his rapidly beating heart, the scent of abalone in his collection bag, and the erratic movements of a creature in distress. All triggers activating predatory instincts. Ryan never saw the attack coming. The great white struck from below with devastating force, massive jaws clamping down on his torso with a bite force reaching 4,000 pounds per square inch, slicing through his wetsuit into vital organs. The shark's initial bite was exploratory, typical great white behavior with unfamiliar prey, but the damage was already catastrophic. The predator released Ryan and circled back. Following the blow, I'll never forget the story of Ryan, the abalone diver. He died from massive blood loss just 20 minutes after a shark attack. The Coast Guard arrived, but they were too late. His death sent shock waves through the diving community. Before that, Ryan was struggling to stay afloat, his thick, wet suit offering little protection against the shark's teeth, which had penetrated deep enough to cause massive internal bleeding. His screams echoed across the water as he fought to reach his partner. Marcus reached him within minutes, pulling his bloodied partner from the water. He radioed for help and applied prez to the wounds, but they were too far from help. The beds at Fort Ross were temporarily closed while biologists studied great white activity. But while Northern California's great whites patrol kelp forests hundreds of miles south in Florida, the same aggressive species that claimed David Walter was about to turn a spear fishing competition into a feeding frenzy. This time, the attack would unfold in crystal clear water, where every horrific detail would be visible. August 14th, 2013, brought perfect conditions to Jupiter Inlet, Florida. The morning sun sparkled on the emerald Atlantic waters, creating ideal visibility for the annual South Florida spearfishing tournament. Alex Paul, 33, couldn't have asked for better conditions for one of the region's most prestigious underwater hunting competitions. He embodied the passionate dedication of Florida's spearfishing community. The construction foreman from Miami spent weekends free diving in crystal clear waters, honing breath-holding abilities and perfecting aim with spear guns. That morning, Alex joined 40 competitors at the tournament briefing. Target species included cobia, kingfish, and grouper. Alex had scouted extensively and identified promising spots. The competition began at sunrise. Alex and his dive buddy Carlos headed to a productive reef in 30 feet of water. For 2 hours, Alex had moderate success. But as the morning progressed, he became focused on finding a trophy fish. When he spotted a massive cobia cruising the reef edge, Alex knew he'd found his target. The cobia was magnificent, easily 50 pounds. His shot was perfect, striking just behind the gills, but the wounded fish immediately took off for deeper water. In excitement, Alex became separated from Carlos and other divers. The wounded cobia's struggle created a blood trail as Alex fought to control the powerful fish. When Alex finally surfaced, he was bleeding from cuts and exhausted. The combination of fish blood and human blood, along with the struggles of the dying cobia, created stimuli triggering predatory instincts. What Alex didn't realize was that he had attracted one of Florida's most dangerous predators, the bull shark. These powerful hunters typically reach 6 to 8 feet and have specialized kidneys that regulate salt content in their blood, enabling them to appear anywhere from open ocean to golf course ponds miles inland. Their incredible sensory system allows them to detect vibrations from struggling fish and sense electrical fields. Unlike other shark species, bull sharks are known for their bold approach, often competing directly with spear fishermen. Their aggressive nature and opportunistic feeding behavior, combined with their ability to strike repeatedly, makes them one of the most feared predators in American waters. The 7-foot bull shark had been patrolling the reef when the blood scent reached its nostrils. The predator's acute senses detected electrical fields generated by both the struggling fish and Alex's rapidly beating heart. Alex saw the shark approaching and tried releasing his catch, hoping to distract it. But bull sharks are opportunistic feeders with insatiable appetites. Multiple potential prey items only intensified aggressive behavior. Instead of taking the offered, the water turned crimson in an instant. A bull shark, jaws clamping down on Alex's leg with crushing force. It's a stark reminder of the power held beneath the waves. The attack, swift and brutal, severed major blood vessels. The shark's characteristic multiple strikes caused massive tissue damage. I can only imagine the desperation Alex felt, punching at the shark's snout, trying to reach his dive knife. But the bull shark, driven by its aggressive nature, continued its relentless assault. Other divers, alerted by the commotion and the spreading slick of blood, raced toward Alex. They found him floating, unconscious, his spear gun and the wounded cobia drifting nearby. The bull shark had vanished, leaving behind only the devastating evidence of its attack. Despite immediate first aid and a Coast Guard helicopter evacuation, Alex died from massive blood loss during the 40-minute flight to the trauma center. A tournament was canceled, and the spear fishing community mourned the loss of one of their most respected members. In the wake of this tragedy, enhanced safety protocols were implemented at tournaments. Closer proximity to dive buddies became mandatory, and organizers began providing emergency response training. A memorial fund was established promoting safer diving practices, a lasting tribute to Alex and a commitment to preventing future tragedies.